You hold the door for a stranger, something in you softens. You read a stranger's opinion online, something in you sharpens. You didn't choose either reaction, something much older than you did. Here's the part that should bother you. It's the same brain doing both. Same nervous system. Same person who says sorry when they bump into someone's shopping cart, who 20 minutes later will type something to a total stranger they would never, in 100 lifetimes, say to a human face. You've done it, everyone has. Not because you're cruel, not because the internet made you a worse person. You are not two people. You're one very old piece of software trying to run in an environment it was never built for. For 300,000 years, there was no such thing as a stranger you couldn't see. No such thing as an insult with no face behind it, and no face in front of it either. That fact alone is going to explain almost everything that happens on your phone. Rewind, not centuries, almost the entire span of human existence. For most of our history, humans lived in bands of maybe 50 to 150 people. That number isn't random. It shows up again and again in how our brains are wired for relationships. Anthropologists call it a cognitive ceiling, roughly the number of people a human mind can hold as individuals, each with a face, a history, a reputation. Inside that circle, everyone was known. Outside that circle was something rarer and far more dangerous, the stranger. Meeting someone unknown wasn't a daily inconvenience. It was one of the highest stakes moments a person could face. A stranger could be a trading partner. A stranger could be a threat. There was no way to check a name against a database, no reviews, no history. There was only the face in front of you and what your body could read from it in real time. So cultures built rituals around it, elaborate ones. The Bedouin tradition of hospitality obligated a host to protect and feed a stranger for 3 full days before even asking their name. Ancient Greek Xenia placed the stranger under the personal protection of Zeus himself. Harm a guest, and you weren't just breaking a social rule, you were defying a god. Pashtun Melmascha still holds today. A stranger at your door is owed shelter, no questions asked, no matter the cost to the host. The strange part is, these weren't just customs, they were survival technology. Because here's what happens biologically, standing in front of another human being, close enough to see their pupils. Your body reads their breathing, their micro-expressions, the tension in their jaw, before your conscious mind has processed a single word. Mirror neurons fire. Oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds a parent to a child, floods your system in response to eye contact and shared physical space. Cruelty, face-to-face, has always come with a built-in cost. Your own nervous system punishes you for it in real time before you've even finished the sentence. That was the operating system. For 300,000 years, it worked perfectly. Then something started happening that the system had never encountered. The first crack was writing. For the first time, a message could travel to someone whose face you'd never see and whose reaction you'd never witness. No eye contact, no shared breath, no immediate cost. It was small at first. Most letters were formal, slow, expensive to send. But it planted something, the idea that words could exist completely detached from the body that spoke them. Then came the printing press, and with it, something entirely new, the anonymous pamphlet. For the first time in history, an ordinary person could say something scathing, publish it widely, and never be identified. Political pamphleteers across 16th and 17th century Europe hid behind pseudonyms, specifically because they knew the words they were printing would never have survived a face-to-face conversation. The telegraph and telephone briefly pulled some of that intimacy back. A voice, at least, carries tone, hesitation, warmth. But they also did something else. They collapsed distance without collapsing the number of people you could reach. A single voice, a single letter, could now touch dozens, then hundreds, of people who would never stand in the same room as you. Nobody expected what happened when computers entered the chain. By the 1980s, early online forums had assembled the exact ingredients that human social instinct was never designed to handle, all at once: anonymity, distance, delay, and scale. Anonymity meant no reputation was on the line. Distance meant no face to read, and no face reading you. Delay meant no immediate consequence, You could say something and be gone before anyone reacted. And scale meant you weren't speaking to one stranger anymore. You were speaking to hundreds, then thousands, all compressed into a single feed. Psychologists who study this later gave it a name: the online disinhibition effect. Strip away the face, the delay, the accountability, and ordinary, decent people say things they never would in person. Not because the internet reveals who we really are, because it removes the exact mechanisms that kept us in check for 300,000 years. And then the feed learned to profit from it. Modern platforms don't just allow this disinhibition, they're built algorithmically to reward it. Outrage holds attention longer than agreement. A cruel reply gets more engagement than a kind one. The systems weren't designed by evolution. They were designed by engineers optimizing for a single metric: time spent looking at the screen. And it turned out that the fastest way to hold a human's attention was to reactivate the oldest, rawest parts of a threat detection system that used to only fire around real, physical danger. That's the domino line. Writing removed the face. The press removed the identity. The telegraph removed the distance. The internet removed the delay. And the algorithm removed the ceiling, the natural cap of 150 people your brain was ever meant to track as individuals. By the time you pick up your phone in the morning, you're being asked to have opinions about and reactions to more strangers before breakfast than most of your ancestors encountered in their entire lives. Here's what almost nobody realizes: your brain never got the memo that any of this changed. The part of your mind responsible for reading faces, the fusiform face area, only activates for actual faces asterisk, not avatars, not usernames, not a stranger's opinion rendered in Helvetica. Without a face to process, the empathy circuitry that kept our ancestors gentle with each other simply never switches on. That explains why I feel this, that flicker of guilt after a real confrontation, and the total absence of it after an online one. It's not that you care less. It's that half the machinery you'd normally use to care was never given anything to look at. And then there's the number problem. Remember the ceiling, 150 faces, roughly the most individuals a human brain can hold as asterisk people rather than categories. For nearly all of human history, that ceiling was never tested. You simply never met more strangers than your mind could process as individuals. Now you scroll past thousands in an evening, and when the number of people you're asked to process outpaces what your brain can individuate, something quietly shifts. They stop registering as people and start registering as asterisk positions, opinions, obstacles, targets. The same collapse that let soldiers dehumanize enemies in wartime and let mobs act in ways no individual within them would alone, de-individuation, psychologists call it, happens quietly daily to ordinary people scrolling before bed. This is why road rage evaporates the second two drivers get out of their cars. The windshield does what a screen does, it removes the face just enough to disinhibit you. Put that same face 6 inches away and the ancient machinery reboots instantly. Oxytocin, mirror neurons, the old rules back online. You are not becoming crueler as a species. You're being asked, for the first time in your species' history, to be kind to people you will never have to look at again. And no version of you, going back 300,000 years, was ever built to do that. For almost the entire span of human existence, morality wasn't really a question of being good. It was a question of being seen asterisk. Cruelty was expensive because it left a face in front of you and a body that would remember. Kindness was cheap because your own nervous system rewarded you for it before you'd even finished the gesture. We weren't more virtuous once. We were simply never given the option to be cruel for free. Online, for the first time in human history, that price disappeared, not because people changed, because the body did. We didn't lose our kindness. We just built the first world in 300,000 years where kindness has to work without a body attached